Okay, طيب. A very good morning to you. This is me again, Dr. Sameh, and this is A230A, and this is our third class. What do we have on the agenda this morning? It's again Othello, which is obviously part of the Renaissance. We spoke enough and long about what what the Renaissance means and what it stands for. And we're starting to apply the ideas and ideologies that we have spoken about to Othello. What did we do with Othello last time? We have covered a lot of territories. We spoke about um, the time, spoke about the hierarchies of the time, whether those hierarchies were hierarchies of color, race, you know, even on the level of society, where you have people on top and you have people obviously at the bottom. And we established the fact that the idea of reaching out to another class or another color is out of the question. And if you insist, you don't get away with it. We promise you, you get penalized and punished for that. And this is what we have seen from what little we know about Othello and what happened with him and with his wife Desdemona, right? Um, it was all Act One that we did with its different scenes where we were given, um, hints and glimpses and even revelations about the different characters. And on top of them was, of course, Iago. And we have said that Iago can be evil, can be bad, but he is also very inventive. He is also very creative, and he is also very kind of steadfast in whatever he does. And this may prompt us to fall into the trap of admiring him at certain points. We said that shouldn't happen because he is bad. Remember also in Act One, uh, late, and this was meant, and this was by design, because it was meant to kind of build up some kind of excitement and suspense. We normally authors have the other characters speak about the main character for some time so that they can pick, our curiosity and about excitement about him. Um, we spoke about the gigantic figure Othello and when he appeared and when he started to defend himself against the accusations of Parapansio, the fact that he kind of practiced magic on the latter's daughter, and when we spoke about uh, himself, I mean Othello being unhoused, and the fact that it is true that he is not a citizen of Venice, but he did services that outweigh the services that people like Parapansio did for the country. We ended on this note that somehow we're moving from Venice, the seat of government, a civilization center, a trading empire that everybody envies. We're moving from Venice to Cyprus, and Cyprus is obviously affiliated in some way to Venice, and it is a coastal town or city or island, call it whatever you want. And if I talk about the coast, I mean that would conjure up the idea of having a sea, and obviously for all their beauty and beautiful beaches, seas can also be unpredictable. Today it's calm and tomorrow it's very stormy and it can cause damage and harm. So you would need to think of Cyprus along those lines, the fact that it has a sea where the Venetians are going to fend off the invasion of the Turks. Yeah, this is the good part of it, that you have this place. I mean, you preempt any strikes. Instead of waiting for the enemy to come inland, you go and wait for him. Bring good omens, if you like. So we're moving. Who is moving? It's pretty much everyone. Where we see that Othello is going, of course, because he is the military leader. Iago is going. Othello's wife, Desdemona, Cassio, and everybody else. And we're going to stay in Cyprus for the rest of the play. So, much of what is going to happen is again in Cyprus, and again because of the associations of the sea and its stormy nature, we're not anticipating good things to happen there. So let's go and kind of track this down through unit or chapter 2 in the textbook. So this is chapter 2. Obviously, the play is divided into acts. Chapter 2 is the textbook that accompanies, of course, the textbook. It's the critical material that it's the second resource, so this is chapter 2, honesty and difference, men and women, or women. And obviously, we have so many men, and uh, the women are not so many. It's only Emilia and Desdemona. Okay, so like I said, in Act 2, we're moving from Venice with the associations of Venice. Whenever we talk about Venice, we talk about civilization, we talk about civility and good behavior, government, and all those kinds of things. When we talk about Cyprus, it's the complete opposite. So this is Act 2, and with Act 2, we have a change of setting. Of course, setting means place. So Act 2, Scene 1, there is a change of setting that marks also a change of attitudes, a change of behavior, and everything in between. Again, why do people have to move from Venice to Cyprus? It's because there is this impending Turkish invasion of Venice. So that's why they wanted to take the battle to the fringe uh, um, of the empire, of the Venetian Empire. So all is alarm and confusion as the engagement with the Turkish fleet is awaited. And then when they go and they are preparing and everything, this kind of threat is dispelled for the simple reason that the Venetians and the Turks have reached some kind of ceasefire or truce, TRUCE. There is no battle or war looming on the horizon anymore. Okay, so obviously they're going to stay there. I mean, Othello and Desdemona and everybody else. Yeah, it is true that there is a ceasefire reached, but they until they arrive, I mean, they go back. They're going to stay for a while in Cyprus. So everybody is there. It's Othello, Desdemona, Iago. Again, we will see a repetition of what happened when you first saw Iago and Rodrigo, and again, Iago does not stop or shy away from, kind of repeating and kind of replicating his plots against Othello. Again, the focus this time around is on discrediting Cassio. Cassio is another, soldier. He works with Othello, of course, and Othello has a very up until this point, he has a very good opinion of Cassio. So what Iago is going to do is to kind of discredit Cassio in the eyes of Othello. Again, there is some kind of trust between Cassio and Desdemona because of Cassio's gallantry. He is such a nice, handsome young man, and there is this kind of mutual respect and admiration and trust between him and Desdemona, and obviously this is something that Iago is going to play on. Again, when we meet them at the very beginning of Act 2 in Cyprus, as expected, we get to hear that there is a big storm. And obviously, it's a storm from inside, but it's going to also reflect the storm or the number of storms within the characters later in the play. So again, if you have a storm in an act or in a scene, this is a typical Shakespearean habit where it's some kind of premonition, and it is also a sign. Again, it tells you that we are in for a world that is not stable, which is obviously Cyprus. So it shows the instability of the world the characters are now inhabiting. So again, the source of all of that is the storm, and the storm, of course, comes from the sea. So the sea for them means both the source of power and of danger. Again, there is this occasion where they are going to, again, Iago and Othello are going to dwell more on the idea of love and what love means for them. And obviously, um, Othello's love is pure, is innocent, and it has this sense of um, understanding to it, sharing and caring and everything. And this is one of the things that he says about love. If it were now to die, it were now to be most happy. He's saying that if I die now with Desdemona with me, in love with me, married to me, if I die now, I will be the most or the happiest person on earth. Again, like in Act 1, Othello is going to be absent from the stage for some time, and this is bad news. I told you that normally if Othello is absent, Iago is very active. And again, it's not something good that the protagonist, that the titular hero is absent from the stage, because in this case, Iago is given more space, more time, and again, in this case, people would ask, if Othello is not there, why? Why would we call him the hero of the play? Why don't we say that it's Iago? And there is a great deal of talk about this idea that Othello is absent for long stretches of time. Again, the association between Venice and civility is clear, and the association between Cyprus and violence and evil scheming is also very clear. Iago now that he is away from Venice, he gives rein to his narrow, cynical view of human relations. Um, and we will have him and we'll see him as very powerful and as very manipulative. So what do we know about Cassio? We know that he is nice, he's handsome, he is trustworthy, but we also know that he is libertine. Libertine means that he has relationships. I mean, he has affairs and everything. And he has this relationship with Bianca, and obviously Iago is going to also play on that. The fact that he has soft spots for women, so many. Again, this question of where Othello is and how much he is absent from the space of the play, this question pops up from time to time. So if he is absent, do we feel that the balance of the play is shifting towards Iago? Yeah, sometimes you feel that. And this is, like I said, is not something that we should be happy about because, again, Iago is not the protagonist and he shouldn't be given that space. So this space, this big space is given at the cost and at the expense of Othello and what we think of Othello. So the balance is shifting towards Iago. Again, there is a great deal of references to Othello in his absence, but who do we see physically on the stage, active and doing this and that? It's Iago. So we see Iago's technique of exploiting the weaknesses of those to whom he pretends loyalty, coming into his own as he uses Cassio. Again, he sees through characters. He knows that Cassio is libertine. He knows that Cassio has those drinking habits when he is drunk. He kind of flashes at and against people. So he uses Cassio's drunken rage to destroy his position and reputation. Again, when Othello gets to know about Cassio's drunken rage, he's going to be angry and he starts uh, to kind of shout, and that would give us, a sense of how commanding and forceful he is. But he's going to also depend on Iago and his reporting of the incident and also his assessment of the situation and the character of Cassio. Again, how much do we know about Iago so far? We know that he is bluff and that he is confident, and he is also an actor. Actor means that he pretends to be something that he is not. He's a professional actor. He's very devious, uh, um, and he has this sense of control to him. He controls everybody through his speech and his maneuvering and manipulative nature. Again, he has a list of victims through his manipulative schemes, and one of those victims is going to is Othello too. So Othello is becoming his victim. Is going to play on. I mean, Iago is going to play on the weaknesses and the insecurities of Othello. Again, we should not. It is true that sometimes we feel angry with Othello, but that shouldn't be, and our sympathies shift, but they shouldn't be shifted to Iago, obviously. We may not feel sometimes very sympathetic towards Othello, but that does not mean that we give those sympathies to Iago. So many audiences find themselves enjoying Iago's energy and feel complicit in his plotting at this point. Again, because we feel that Othello is taking distance, is not appearing, and sometimes he is even acting in not in the way that we expect him to act. But Othello all the time commands respect. We may not feel that feeling of fellow feeling and sympathy for him at times, but he always wins our respect. Um, of course, you know by now what the play is about. It has a very simple plot, and we don't have fringe plots or sub plots. Again, because the focus should be always on this simple plot, the fact that we have those two lovers who are acting against all odds, getting married against the traditions, against the parents, against society. Normally, whenever we have plays like those, and it gets very tense, we sometimes have what we call comic relief. Comic relief is a scene that makes you smile, and there is comic bantering between the characters, small characters. There are comic situations that can relieve you of the tension that you have been subjected to all through, but we don't have that. Uh, Here comes a time through the deeds of both characters, Othello and Iago, through pitting them against each other, we can form some kind of assessment of those two characters. We have spoken enough about Iago. Now we're going to talk more about Othello because he is now assuming more space as of Act 2 through his behavior, good or bad. So as you're going to see, and perhaps this is a little bit premature because we haven't seen Othello as a character in his entirety. We haven't seen what he will do in Act 3 and 4 and 5. But again, at least we know what the plot is all about. We know what he will do. So based on what he says and what he does, we have an assessment of the character of Othello. And whenever we have this assessment, people divide and polarize. You have people who are pro Othello, which means that they like Othello very much. And you have people who are anti Othello, who believes that Othello is whatever happened to him and Desdemona is self-inflicted. He inflicted all those kinds of pain, and suffering on himself. It's through his deeds or misdeeds for that matter, that suffering and harm came about. So different views on Othello. We have the pro-Othello team or group of scholars, and one of them happens to be A.C. Bradley, and the other is Wilson Knight. So you have two scholars who believe that Othello is such an admirable character, and whatever happened to him happened through outside agency and through no fault of his own. And you have scholars who are anti-Othello, who believe that Othello would have avoided what happened to him if he thought properly, if he didn't have some of the qualities that they associate with him, like the idea of self-dramatization, as we're going to see. So again, those pro-Othello people are A.C. Bradley and Wilson Knight. So how much do we know about what they say? For example, A.C. Bradley wrote a very influential critical study titled Shakespeare Tragedy in 1904, and he saw Othello as open and passionate. He believed that Othello was a lover, the strength of whose passion inspired the love, not only of Desdemona, but the audience, who were swayed by his grandiloquence and pitied him when he fell, despite the murder of his wife. This is obviously a tall uh, um, calling. I mean, to say that let's talk about it. This is, I would like you to read it and tell me what you understood. So we're talking about A.C. Bradley, and obviously he is saying very nice things about Othello. He saw Othello as open and passionate. Obviously, these are good qualities. He believed that he was a lover, and the power of his love and passion uh, um, prompted not only Desdemona to love him, but all the audience. And the audience were kind of got affected and also by his grandiloquence, means his musicality and poeticity, and they felt sympathetic towards him even when he murdered his wife. What do you think of this view? Do you think this is,
I think
yeah,
from the can I
yeah,
answer?
man, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I think like if we look from the beginning, we would notice that Othello is actually like from within, he's a good person. Like he doesn't view women from a lower position as Iago thinks, and he has this respect and understanding to Desdemona, which is why she fell in love with him after hearing his stories, his adventures, his experience, unlike other men around him. And I think
Remember, he murdered his wife.
yeah,
Would
yeah.
you, would you
And
excuse
when
him
he
for that?
murdered his wife, he understood maybe that's why he committed suicide because he understood his mistake. Like he understood that she wasn't cheating on him; it was all a lie, and like that's why
So,
after he murdered her and committed suicide, that's like a symbolic thing that he actually feels bad for about
so
himself.
Desdemona did the, I mean, now that he killed himself and committed suicide, do you think this has benefited Desdemona in any way?
No.
So he killed a human being, right?
Yes.
And also the fact that from the events and incidents, I mean, he didn't obviously do enough research into what happened. He only succumbed to what Iago is telling him. He listened to Iago. So don't you think that instead of listening to Iago, he should have listened to Desdemona?
He
Um,
should have.
don't you think that perhaps whatever Desdemona did for him could have triggered this train of thought in him? Why would she betray me now and cheat on me now? And she's the one who chose me. She's the one who kind of challenged her traditions. She's the one who said no to her father and decided to go and elope with me. Don't you think he should have thought and considered these ideas?
Yes, he should have.
Yeah. Do you still feel sympathetic towards him? You feel that
Not
he is.
anymore.
Mm. Okay. So let's move on. Let's move on. So, according to Bradley, the view of the play is that the tragedy is the undoing of the noble Moor by the devilish cunning of Iago. Do you think it's just that, the tragedy that we're seeing here is the undoing him is the destruction of the noble Moor? Then obviously we're all agreed that he is noble, but to say that the destruction of this noble guy, his death and whatever happened to him, was all meted out by the devilish cunning of Iago is uh, um, is a bit of a stretch. What do you think? Do you think that Iago is totally to blame for what happened to uh, Othello?
No.
Hmm. Can we have other people on board? Can you guys share with us what you think?
Again, before coming to the conclusions, Othello should have asked us tomorrow. He should have done some research about the whole situation before actually
Yeah,
blaming him.
yeah, yeah. If we're good friends, me and Mariam, we're so good friends, and somebody would come up and say, "Listen, Mariam is such and such. Shouldn't I go to Mariam and perhaps confront her about what this guy is saying, or should I kind of say, okay, and me and Mariam are not friends anymore? What do you think? So in situations like these, do you think it's a good idea that form you make hasty judgments and you start to say, okay, obviously this guy is correct in what he said about my wife, and I'm going to go and divorce her, for example. Is that the right attitude to issues as complex as, I mean, divorcing and murdering one's wife?
No, this is obviously wrong.
Yeah. Okay. So the Bradley view was that external evil, the malice of the demi-devil, is the thing that turned a happy story of romantic love, of romantic lovers who were qualified to live happily ever after, into a tragedy. So according to Bradley, it's all external evil. And this evil is embodied in the character of Iago, whom he calls demi-devil. Had it not, he's trying to say that had it not been for Iago and his devilish schemes, they could have lived happily ever after. What do you think? We have a tragedy because of Iago and nobody else. You agree with this assessment?
No.
No. Okay, so let's move on to anti-Othello people like T.S. Eliot. Anti means against. And they are not against Othello because he's black and they are white, for example. No, they have their valid, objective reasons. And I shouldn't say valid because obviously when I say valid means that I am with them or I agree with them. And this is some kind of bias. I should be objective and I should be neutral. Okay, so what does T.S. Eliot say about Othello? So the poet and critic T.S. Eliot picked up what he saw as Othello's tendency to self-dramatize, especially in his final speeches. We haven't gone that far yet, but we can almost tell. Um, and we'll take T.S. Eliot's word for it. I mean, the fact that T.S. Eliot believes that Othello has a tendency to self-dramatize, especially in his final speeches, whatever that means, self-dramatization. Can I ask you to go and check this phrase up or this word, if it's a word, yeah, self-dramatize. So I would like you to go to
Maybe playing the
Google.
victim?
No, now go and check. I would like you to write it in Google, self-dramatize, and self-dramatization, and come back and tell me what will come out with you. I'll give you a minute for that. Self-dramatize. Dramatize. Okay? Raise your hand if you have done your research about self-dramatize. How many of us have gone out of their way and now know what self-dramatize means? Raise your hand. Only one person? Okay. So what does, Mariam, did you do your research on
Yes.
self-dramatization? So what do we know? Self-dramatize.
So it's basically when someone behaving in a way to make himself or herself seem more interesting, fascinating, just for the sake of getting people's attention.
Yeah, so you're trying to grab the attention of everyone. You're craving attention, right? So according to S. Eliot, this is what Othello is all about, the character. He craves attention. He wants people to all the time talk about him and his deeds and achievements and everything in between. And if he doesn't, and if people run out of talking about his achievements, they are even allowed to pity him. So it can work both ways. They can talk about his strength, but he is also okay with him talking about his weaknesses and talking, but in a pitiful way, I mean, in a sympathetic way. Can you? Uh, so it's craving attention that Othello is all about. Craving attention means you want to be on in the spotlight all the time, even for the wrong reasons. The wrong reasons would be that you're being betrayed and cheated on by your wife, and you feel sympathy and you start to make those fiery speeches, so people will pity you. That's fine too. This is what T.S. Eliot is saying about Othello. Do you think he's a little bit harsh on Othello? What do you think? Do you agree with
No,
him?
I agree on just a little bit about with.
Mm, yeah. So it's this idea of self-dramatization and perhaps self-pity that is kind of prompting Othello to behave in certain ways, according to T.S. Eliot. So the poet and critic T.S. Eliot picked up what he saw as Othello's tendency to self-dramatize, especially in his final speeches. We have another anti-Othello guy by the name of F.R. Leaves. Let's see what F.R. Leaves is saying, and obviously whatever he is saying is against what Bradley was saying about Othello. According to F.R. Leaves, Bradley's view, so he was obviously um, kind of um he read what Bradley was saying about Othello, and he wasn't happy about what Bradley is saying and Bradley's view of Othello. And he started to kind of focus on, kind of critiquing what Bradley is saying. He says, Bradley's view sentimentalizes Shakespeare's tragedy and displaces its center. Too much attention, according to Leaves, tends to be paid to the character of Iago and his diabolic intellect. The plain fact is that in Shakespeare's tragedy of Othello, Othello is the chief personage, personage in such a sense that the tragedy may fairly be said to be Othello's character in action. Iago is subordinate and merely ancillary. He's saying, Leaves is trying to say that what Bradley is saying about Othello and the sympathies that he has for him is obviously placing the center of the play and shifting the focus somewhere else. If we keep talking about Iago and what he did and the fact that uh, uh, he did everything, including turning against Othello and scheming against. If we keep talking that much about Iago, it means that we're displacing the center of the play. He says we need to all be reminded that the play is called the tragedy of Othello. It's not called the tragedy of Iago, for example, or Iago in action. He is warning us against giving more and much prominence to the character of Iago at the expense of Othello, because in this way, the play wouldn't be about Othello. It would be more about Iago, when Iago is a mere subordinate, merely ancillary. So obviously he's talking from a technical point of view. He's saying don't lose sight of the fact that the play is called Othello, not Iago, and don't give too much credence to the idea that Iago is fully responsible for the downfall of Othello, because that would take away from the uh, uh, um, the the beauty of the play, because the play is obviously about Othello and not about Iago. Okay, and then leaves, goes out of his way and also talk against the view of Wilson Knight. Remember, we still remember Wilson Knight and what he said about the play and what he said about Othello and his musicality. And obviously, Wilson Knight was also in favor of Othello, and he likes him so much. So Leaves goes on to suggest that Wilson Knight's view of the grand Othello music should be understood in a more critical way as an indication of a habit of self-approving, self-dramatization that is an essential element in Othello's makeup and remains so at the very end. Again, Leaves is obviously sharing T.S. Eliot's sentiment about Othello being self-approving and self-dramatizing. He's saying, obviously, we need to be more focused on what Othello is doing, and the fact that he is given to music through his verbal powers, the ability to make those fiery speeches. This is obviously proof enough that he is into the habit of self-approving and self-dramatizing. And again, this is against him, because that would mean that he would put himself in situations where he is praised, and if he doesn't find those places where he is praised, he can also agree if people pity him. So they praise him for his deeds, and they may pity him for his wrong decisions when he decides to kill his wife and subsequently kill himself. Uh, um, Again, this is still F.R. Leaves, and he's saying Iago's prompt success in persuading Othello of Desdemona's alleged treachery is not so much the result of Iago's diabolic intellect as of Othello's readiness to respond. Again, yeah, Leaves is telling us that it didn't take Iago much to kind of convince Othello that his wife is doing something wrong. Again, it's because of Othello's natural propensity to listen, his readiness to respond in a self-dramatizing way. This is central to Leaves' argument. He says that Iago's power, in fact, in the temptation scene is that he represents something that is in Othello. In Othello, the husband of Desdemona, the essential traitor is within the gates. Iago is simply his mechanism necessary for precipitating tragedy in a dramatic action. This is very serious. He's saying, for all what Iago did, still the traitor is within the gates. And this is a very buoyant and a very powerful image. So he's saying the traitor is within the gates. This is Leaves. Who is the traitor, and whose gates or what gates is he talking about? So Leaves is saying that the traitor is within the gates. Can you explain this very powerful image that Leaves is depicting or portraying? The traitor is within the gates. Okay.
I think, but I'm not sure. But I think that he means that the traitor is Othello himself, not
Yeah.
Iago, because in the first place, if we look in at the beginning of the play, Iago was mad at him because he appointed Cassio, like he promoted him instead of himself. But
Yeah.
Iago thinks that Cassio is unexperienced enough to get that position, unlike him.
Yeah. Yeah. So what Leaves? This is very poetic, of course. Leaves is using a very vivid imagery here, and he's saying that um, if you are in enmity with somebody, if you are in a state of enmity, so enmity can happen towards an external force. You have an external enemy, somebody else, for example. Okay, or in a battle, if you're a country, you have another country as an enemy. Okay, but sometimes the enemy is yourself. Okay, sometimes the enemy is people from within your country, traitors, like we call them traitors. Okay, so he is trying to say, Leaves is trying to say that the enemy or the traitor is within. The traitor is within Othello himself, and obviously he means that his self-approving and self-dramatizing nature, his rash judgments, his insecurities. So these are all the enemies, and they happen to be within the gates. And the gates here are, your own character and your own body. Are you getting the image? Okay, so the essential traitor is within the gates. And we move to a very important scene, obviously, and it's called the temptation scene. And it can conjure up and it can evoke ideas about elemental and archetypal temptation scenes that we have been introduced to and exposed to down through the ages. In all the literatures of the world, in all the sacred books of the world, you always have this temptation element and scene. When I say temptation, What does this, does it ring any bells? Does it evoke or invoke ideas of temptation um, in whatever you have read down through the ages? So temptation,
Like something that triggers,
excuse me.
something that triggers someone.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about the literal definition of the word because we're all agreed on what temptation means. But I'm talking about the archetypal temptation situations that we are raised against and born into. Of course, we all read the Quran. Some of us read the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita in India, Hinduism, and they all share the idea that at one point you have the devil tempting a human being. In the case of, in biblical and Quranic terms, you have Adam and Eve, right? And you have the Satan tempting them in the form of a serpent. Remember that. So this is what it invokes, the idea of temptation. It means that you're not supposed to do something, but somehow you're tempted to do it. Okay, and it can take those archetypal proportions, like I'm saying. You'll, if you check in any religion, in any faith tradition, you will meet with a temptation scene of sort. Like I said, in Islam, in Christianity and Judaism, in Hinduism, and I don't know whether in Buddhism they have this kind of thing or not. So again, this is what it invokes, the idea of temptation. It means that I'm trying to get you to do something, and obviously it takes some time for you to think. Okay, so what is this temptation that we're having? We're having Iago tempting Othello, insinuating to him, manipulating him so that he can be convinced of uh, um, of the fact that Cassio and Desdemona are having an affair. Um, okay, so and the temptation scene is all about echoing. When I echo you, when you say something and I echo you, do I echo you in normal circumstances? If you say something, yeah, Mariam, do I echo you? Hmm?
No,
Do you echo me when I say something?
I'm sorry,
No.
but what exactly do you mean by echoing? I don't understand.
Echo means that I say what you're saying. You say I don't
Like
understand,
repeating?
and I say you don't understand, and I repeat whatever you're saying, as if there is an echo. صدى، عارفين صدى الصوت? Okay. So if in normal circumstances I don't echo you, and now I'm echoing you, do you think there is, I'm trying to say something? I'm trying to give you a message, to give you a signal or not?
Yeah.
Yes, right? So it's, I'm doing it deliberately and on purpose. It's something that I don't know, don't do in normal circumstances. So this is, so the temptation scene is about Othello, Iago echoing Othello. Okay, as we're going to see in a minute. And obviously, he has an agenda. He doesn't echo for the sake of echoing, because this is something that we're not even used to with Iago. We haven't seen him echoing other characters. It's only with Othello that he is echoing, and obviously he has an agenda. He's echoing for a reason or for a purpose. Okay? So, and this is what one of the critics is saying. Marjorie Garber suggests that one of the ways Iago manages or tempts Othello is by being an echo. Echo means turning the meaning of his words against themselves. So you may feel that whatever he is repeating is innocent and everything, but obviously it's not. Especially when we focus on the words that he has chosen to echo, like indeed and honest and think. So this is a typical technique. He pretends to avoid speaking the awful truth so as to protect his master from it, while at the same time ensuring it fits into Othello's mind. So this is what we're going to see. There was this kind of encounter between Cassio and Desdemona, and obviously they are seeing them from afar, Iago and Othello, and Othello is going to ask Iago what he makes out of this, and let's see what happens. So this is the temptation scene, and this is the echo situation that we're talking about. Read it and see if there are any things that get repeated. So let me put or set the context. Obviously, they are reflecting on what they have seen, and what they have seen Cassio and Desdemona talking to each other. So they are reflecting, Othello and Iago are reflecting on that. Of course, you need to remember that the word thou means you, and the word ought, A-U-G-H-T, means no. Thy means your. Okay, so what are the words that are repeated?
Indeed.
Hmm? The word indeed. Yeah. What else?
My lord,
My
or
lord.
think my lord.
Yes. Think, my lord. How about the word honest?
Yes,
How
it's
how about
repeated.
the how about the word ought, which means no or not?
Yes, it's
Okay.
repeated.
Yes. So as you can see, we have a measure of repetition that we're not used to when it comes to Iago. He is very straightforward, and we haven't seen this happening with him before in his encounters with Propancio, with Rodriguez, and even with Cassio. So what happens is that he has a message and he's trying to get it across to somebody, and this somebody is obviously Othello. Oh yes, and went between us very oft. I mean, obviously Iago is telling, or yeah, Othello is telling, yeah, see Cassio, remember Cassio? He is a go-between. He used to go between me and um, Desdemona, which means that he knew about our love and he was fine with it and everything. And Iago says, indeed. Indeed, indeed means, yeah. Did he do such as if, did he do that? Or there is, indeed, yeah, indeed. The psalmist now ought in that he is telling, do you think, don't you, is there anything kind of wrong with that? Is he not honest? Do you think he is not honest? And he repeats, honest, my Lord. Again, honest, and then he repeats him, a honest, a honest. My old for aught I know, I don't know. So instead of defending Cashew and saying, and obviously normal people would say, no, yeah, he's nice, he's good. He says, I don't know. And if I say I don't know, it means that uh, I'm uh, half sure of the honesty of the person. That would add more doubt, right? What does thou think? What do you think? Think, my Lord. Think, my Lord. By heaven, thou echoest more. And it says, you're echoing me. He's as if he's telling, why are you echoing me? As if I can feel that you have some monster in thy thought. You have monstrous ideas in your mind and you're not sharing them with me. You have something inside you and you're not sharing it. So this is temptation. Okay, so obviously Iago is tempting Othello by providing half truth by uh, um, staying silent on things, by not responding in a direct way, in a straightforward way, by repeating and echoing Othello. And again, Othello is going to come up with his own conclusions, and is going to say, yeah, it seems that there is something between Cassio and Desdemona. And again, he's going to kind of believe what Iago is saying. And Iago isn't actually saying things, he is only insinuating. And insinuations is about dropping hints, is about offering half truth, is about not being direct in whatever you're saying. Okay? So it is, I mean, Iago does not commit himself. He doesn't say that they have an affair right away. He's only insinuating. And Othello is obviously ready to accept those insinuations. And people would feel that obviously Othello, together with what Leaves and T.S. Eliot are saying about him, he has his own set of insecurities. If we're trying to dignify it, and if we're trying to find excuses, it would be about Othello's own insecurities, and he has a lot of them. So Shakespeare suggests that it is Othello's own insecurity that gives Iago the opportunity to work on his feelings. And what are those insecurities? And why would the character be insecure? And then we start to talk about those insecurities. One of them would be the fact that he is an outsider. And in the description in the play, he is the extravagant and wheeling stranger in this community of Venice, and as one critic puts it, portrayed as forever homeless, uprooted, and on the move, incapable, or at least so his enemies content of ever being naturalized, and he is ethnically different. So he is ethnically different, he's a stranger, he is homeless and uprooted and on the move. These are all insecurities. And of course, you would add to that he belongs to a different race. You would add to that the fact that he is middle-aged, which means that he is perhaps double the age of Desdemona, and also the fact that he he is used to a life of masculinity, a life of maleness in the army. Obviously, in the army at the time didn't have any women. And of course, men to men kind of encounters and deals are all very harsh and tough. And remember, it's the military uh, with its masculinity and toughness. So he is accustomed to the life of the military, and he is unaccustomed to the company of women. So obviously he is predisposed to believe whatever Iago is insinuating. Um, and again, Iago would add to those sets of suspicions and doubts by saying to Othello, uh, did the fact that Desdemona did deceive her father marrying you, and when she seemed to shake and fear your looks, she loved them most. He obviously echoes Parapancio's warning at the end of Act 1, Scene 3, when he said that, yeah, she betrayed me and she went to you, she may do the same thing with you. I mean, obviously, this is Parapancio too. So this is one of the things that reinforced Othello's insecurities about his lack of attractiveness as somebody who is double the age, her age, but obviously he has those other acts that she loved, and over time she will forget about them and focus on his old age, his lack of attractiveness, and everything in between. So Othello's insecurities about his race and age and lack of experience with women would intensify a tendency to expect the worst of the opposite sex. Um, again, that would lead him to collapse into homicidal sexual jealousy. Uh, uh, it is true that yeah, at times you would feel that this is the doing or the undoing of Iago's cunning, uh, but perhaps here we can sense that Othello is no different from Iago, and obviously Iago and Othello are no different from the other members of society, male members of society, who would also share the same sentiment, talking about masculine pride and their perennial suspiciousness when it comes to women. The women didn't enjoy much trust at the time, and of course, it's not the fault of women. It's this male biases against women always and everywhere. So again, here and perhaps for the first time, Othello and Iago are allied. They have this kind of alliance in their, uh, um, you know, um, attitudes towards women. Those attitudes are normally inspired by their distrust of women. So again, we're talking about Othello's view of women, which is obviously no different from those of Iago. So Othello's insecurities being put under the spotlight uh, uh, um, are going to be uh, uh, augmented, and they are going to turn into an expression of horror at the mere thought of being deceived by Desdemona, revealing his decline to the level of Iago's pornographic imagination. So he's going to show his true color as a true male, despite all the love and for all the love he may have for Desdemona, he shows his true color as a male, and he's no different, obviously, than Iago in his pornographic imagine. He says, I had been happy if the general camp, pioneers and all, had uh, tasted her sweet body, so I had nothing known. Again, this is very bad to use this language with the one you love uh, um, because of your male biases. And obviously, this is bad. So this is a male soldier's base view of women. And you start to ask this question: is it Othello? Is this the Othello that we have seen? Is this the Othello and his music? As far as Wilson Knight is concerned, he is now using the language that of Iago. If we don't know, if nobody tells us that this is Othello speaking, would feel that this is Iago, and these are the words of Iago, not Othello. So what do we have here? We have a statement by a Polish critic. His name is Jan Koth, and he's saying there is enchanting poetry here, but at the same time a decaying set of values. Nor only shall Othello crawl at Iago's feet when he has his fit, he shall talk his language, take over from Iago all his obsessions. I mean, he is simply saying that Othello is now no different. He is degenerating and he is becoming another Iago in his obscenity, in his pornographic imagination, in his pathological obsessions with women and their betrayal and deceitfulness and everything in between. So obviously what we're seeing here is that Othello is getting metamorphosed into another Iago. Getting metamorphosed means he is becoming another Iago. Again, as you can see, as far as women are concerned, they seem to have the same character, possess the same views about women. And obviously, we're moving towards a state of violence which would lead to destruction and death. And obviously, as you can see, Othello is now dominating the airwaves, if you like. We see much of Othello, but at not his best, but at his worst. So he is dwindling, he is degenerating into another Iago, the language that he is using, the imagery that he is using, the way of thinking and the minds. So moment after moment in this play, we sense the downward slide into violence and death. Again, Othello will have those encounters with Desdemona, and obviously she stays silent. She can see those feelings of doubt and suspicion in the eyes of her loving husband. And then Othello, he is given the opportunity to also reflect on what happens, and he starts to talk in very cosmic terms. Excellent rich, perdition catch my soul, but I do love thee, and when I love thee not, chaos is come again. He's saying it's either he's talking about himself or talking about her, or perhaps talking about both of them. Is saying we are rich, which means we are poor. It's like telling that you're poor you. Poor you means miskin. Yani we are masakin. Excellent rich, perdition catch my soul, but I do love thee. He says that I do love thee, I love you, Desdemona, and when I love thee not, chaos is come again. And this is a prediction, and this is exactly what will happen. He says, I love you so much. When I stop loving you for some reason, chaos is come again. Chaos and disorder will come, which means that there is going to be death and blood and everything. And this is exactly what happened, but he's giving it cosmic dimensions, and because of his self-dramatizing nature, like you said. He said that if we, for some reason, stop loving each other, chaos and destruction will come. And obviously, um, he is making a big deal out of an internal domestic issue. Again, that if this tells you something, it tells you about how self-important he feels. So these are all hyperbolic utterances, very exaggerated language that he is using. So this is a typically grand hyperbolic, exaggerated statement. And again, you would typical of grand speeches, and there is a lot of ambiguity in what he says. When he says, for example, I love you at the risk of, does he mean I love you at the risk of perdition or damnation? Does he mean that he prefers earthly love to divine love? Or does he mean I'm damned if I don't love you? So again, it's all up for grabs. But one thing is sure, it's his tendency to link his own emotions to large and even cosmic forces. So it's all about his self-image here. Again, the question remains, is it all about Iago's manipulation of his fears and his insecurities, or is it Othello and his nature? So this is a question that we keep asking ourselves. And then we have Act 4, where we have Desdemona and had Kirchhoff, and it's going to fall, and she will fail to account for this thing for whatever reason. And this is something that Iago is going to again play on, and the whole thing is going to be misinterpreted. And of course, Othello is going to think and believe the worst of Desdemona. And then we move on to what we call the melancholy scene. Melancholy means sadness, and this scene have or has Emilia and Desdemona talking, and obviously Emilia is her maid, and she's helping her to bed. She's preparing her for bed, and they start to talk about what is happening. And Desdemona is going to be very anticipatory about what will happen, and she's going to cite the example of her mother or mother's hand made by the name of Barbary. So it's here we have moments of what we call prophetic irony, and some kind of foreshadowing, again, anticipation of what will happen. So in this melancholic melancholy scene, we have two women, and during their, I mean, they are sharing what they feel about the world, about other women, and also about men around them. And obviously, this is it gives a human touch to what is happening. So it's these are very brief moments where you have uh, woman to woman encounter, away from the domination of the male domination. We don't have men, perhaps for the first and the last time in the play. What we see in other scenes and acts is we have men all over the place, whether they are soldiers, courtiers, or senators. Again, they are active and it's public life that they dominate. Here, it's the private sphere of women. So the scene describes a moment of heightened tension, and in it we have the story of Barbary, who happens to be Desdemona's mother's maid. She was possibly and probably black. She had a lover who proved mad and this lover abandoned her. Uh, and obviously she dies, Barbary, the maid, and she dies singing a song of willow. So the willow song expresses female despair and longing and passive acceptance towards the lover. Let nobody blame him, his scorn I approve. This is what Barbary said, and this is what Desdemona is now repeating. Don't I don't want anybody to blame Othello, and I approve of what he does. Very anticipatory of the kind of fate that is awaiting for her, obviously, or awaiting her. Again, it's very strange because this is not the Desdemona that we're used to. We're used to Desdemona, who is very defiant, is very self-assertive, who resisted her father's pleas. She got married in secret, and this is very daring. She departed from her home city for a foreign shore. She defied and challenged the customs and the traditions of her white community that said you shouldn't get married to a black man. So now she has she's being reduced to a weak lady who is ready to accept whatever lot awaiting her. So you would ask, she's now a passive victim. She's now very passive and she is non-assertive, unlike Emilia. Emilia, who happens to be a maid, is very daring, is very challenging, which is out of keeping with her position as a maid. It's very strange. So Emilia's last speech is a plea for recognition of women's equal humanity and challenges the anti-woman sentiments expressed by so many of the male characters in the play. Very strange that Emilia is the one who is saying this and not Desdemona. So Emilia's lengthy defense of the rights of wives opens up the whole question of how women were treated at the time and even later. Yeah, read what she said. Very eloquent, very true. I would like you to read this. This is what Emilia is saying. Make no mistake about it. You would expect this to come from Desdemona, but no, this came from Emilia, which is out of keeping with her position as a low class individual. Read it. I'll give you a minute to read it. So if wives do fall, say that they slack their duties, let husbands know their wives have sins like them, they see and smell, and have not we affections, desires for sport and frailty as men have, then let them use us well, else let them know the else we do, their else instructs us so. Very well said. So she says, we, women and wives, if we do something wrong, if we don't discharge our duties the way our men want, let them know that we are human beings like them. We sin, we have sins like them, we see and smell, and don't we have affections like them? Don't we have desires like them? Aren't we as weak as they are? But I am addressing men and I'm telling them to use us well, to treat us well, or else we will do like them. So it's all the doing or the misdoing or the undoing of men. If men treat us well, we behave well. If they don't, obviously we are weak like them. We have the same desires like them and the same affections, and we do like them. So whether what they do is right or wrong. So this is very powerful. This is very poignant. And again, you wouldn't expect it from Emilia. You would expect it from Desdemona, who is now turned into a very non-assertive, weak individual. Again, there is this idea of racism in the play, and whether racism is an individual feeling or sentiment, or is it white, or was it widespread, and was it part of a dominant ideology? This is what Anya Lomba is arguing. She's saying that Europeans have always been like this. They started to become aware of their power and wealth and learning, and started to feel this Christian superiority. And they expressed it in the colonies that they have colonized in Africa, and also in North Africa and Asia and everywhere else. So these are typical attitudes, and they are not peculiar to the play Othello, and they're not peculiar to people like Iago and Rodrigo and Brabantio. No, it has been widespread. She's giving us examples and precedents from history. She is talking about Queen Elizabeth I herself, who ordered the deportation of Negroes and black Moors from England on the grounds that they were depriving her own Christian people from jobs. Sounds familiar? Yeah, sounds familiar to me. Again, racial intolerance was all over the place. Racial hierarchy has always been entrenched. That's why what happened to uh, Desdemona and Othello seems to be a cautionary story advanced by Shakespeare. So
Doctor,
again,
I have a question.
excuse me?
Can I ask you something?
Yeah, ask.
I've read an article on the internet somewhere. It's saying that the play Othello is actually anti-mixed race marriage propaganda by Shakespeare. Is that true?
Yeah, it's propaganda in the sense that Shakespeare was doing the government's bidding, in the sense that at the time, of course, you have an established hierarchy that says if you're black, you stay black, and if you're white on top, you are there, and you shouldn't reach out to each other. So the propaganda of the government at the time would be that people of mixed races shouldn't mix. They should deal with each other. They should trade with each other. That's fine. But when it comes to marrying and stuff, this is not acceptable. So it is, yeah, truly an anti racial marriage propaganda. Yes. So what we have here, we have two things. We have patriarchal domination and also gender inequality. And obviously, the play is entrenching that. So when we have this ending where Desdemona is killed, and then after that, Othello is killed, it means that this is what Shakespeare is trying to warn people against. It's as if he is saying that look at them, look at what happened to them. Think twice before thinking of doing what they did. So this is all about the idea of equality or the lack thereof. So it seems, and this is actually one of the critics of the time. He wrote a critique or a treatise in 1693, and he's summing up the whole idea from the point of view of the author and perhaps the audience of the time. It's a caution to all maidens of quality. Maidens of quality means white girls who might consider running away with black Moors without their parents' consent or approval. And it's also a warning to all good wives that they look well to their linen. They shouldn't drop their handkerchiefs and stuff like that. And I listen to husbands that before their jealousy be tragic, the proofs may be mathematical. And this is basically what the whole thing is about. And then there is talk about this idea of catharsis or hamartia. Hamartia means error of judgment, and we spoke enough about that. And this is uh, um, what is meant by the play normally. You have those tragic scenes, you have this tragic ending, so that you have your excessive feelings kind of released and you feel relieved. So you leave the play very relaxed and you start your life or you resume your life without those excessive feelings. So it's pity and fear that you feel. Again, we move on to the last act where obviously we have people killing each other uh, uh, um, and people stabbing each other, and this is expected. Uh, and then we have Othello walking into this Desdemona's sleeping chamber, intent on killing her, and typically he's going to start with a fiery speech about the cause, my soul, let me not name it to you, you chased up. I mean, it's very big speech, yet she must die for all the love that he has for her, for all her uh, white skin that looks like monumental alabaster, she must die. Again, very hyperbolic language, typical of him. And then we have people talking about this last speech and what they make of it. Um, But one thing is sure is that he is dwindling. His stature as tragic hero is at all-time low. Again, we would leave the play with this eternal question: Who is Othello? Is Othello this deluded, self-important fool, or is he a noble hero brought down by circumstance? So I need you to think about it. Now that we have finished the play, I would like you to make an assessment of the character of Othello and see whether you think he is a deluded means deceived, self-important fool, or a noble hero brought down by circumstance. Again, you know what Leaves said about him. According to Leaves, he is a deluded, self-important fool. Uh, um, again, you have other people who believe that he was brought down by circumstance, and circumstance could be uh, uh, the uh, um, the established order of society, the hierarchy of race and color that were imposed on them, and also those sets of insecurities that were also imposed on him, feeling not belonging, feeling a stranger, being double her age, and stuff like that. Again, you need to see where you think he is. If you think he's a noble hero brought down by circumstance, and you think that he is an honorable murderer, and even I see when I say honorable murderer is a contradiction of terms. How can you be a murderer and you be honorable? Obviously, um, it's um, it's a very interesting paradox here. And there is talk about this speech and what we. I'm not going to kind of spoil it for you. I would like you to think about his character, where you stand, whether you think he's self-deluded, self-important guy, or you think that he's noble and everything, and he's put down by circumstance. Look at them, and perhaps if you would like to write an essay or something and show it to me, I wouldn't mind at all. That would be the end of our efforts here. Next time we start our class with a discussion of where you stand as far as the character of Othello is concerned. Um, we still have time for insights and concerns, if any. If you would like to come to the mic and share anything with us.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Now, during midterm or finals, we're going to have to write an essay, right? What
Yeah.
exactly do I have to write about? About the scholars, like for example, who think have some views of a particular character, like Othello, or we have to analyze the entire play in our words, or both.
Yeah, sometimes you have close reading, and close reading is about giving you part of a text and you analyze it and you try to kind of relate it and think of the themes and the ideas that it projects. This is a
Or
possibility,
like some like the
and
text from the play, right?
sometimes yes, and you also have themes and ideas that are part of a prompt inspired by the plays and the other works, and you're supposed to comment on them in an essay format. So we'll have time to, inshallah, before the midterm, we'll have a revision that tackles all these issues, inshallah. Any other
Thank you.
concerns or questions? Okay. طيب. On this note and with this item, we come to the end of today's class. I'll see you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Bye bye.
Bye.